Okay, may I request everyone to please turn on your camera? Thank you, Shakina, Princess, and others. Thank you. Okay. How about the others? Please turn on your camera. Justine, Jella, EJ, Ira, Ton. Again, my request, everyone, please turn on your camera. Okay. So may we then start our class with an opening prayer, and may we listen to the prayer which will be led to us by Cindy. Cindy, please.
Okay, sir. Let's bow down our heads and feel the presence of the Lord. Um, our Lord and Heavenly Father, we worship and praise you. Praise your name, your holy name. This moment we will continue to study and acquire new knowledge. May you bless your bless your students with a witty brain to think fast and inquiring mind to be curious on whatever knowledge we will learn today. We humbly ask you to bless our instructor, which is Sir Herbert, for him in order to impart his knowledge accordingly. All this we ask in your powerful name. Amen.
Okay, thank you, Cindy, for leading us the prayer. And again, thank you everyone for making yourself available today for our video conference. And of course, I hope that you already have seen your scores in the recent weekly tasks which you completed or which you finished. And of course, I hope that you already have seen also your prelim grade for these course. I hope that your grade would motivate you to keep going and to continue improving your performance in our subject or in our course. Please take note again that there's a cut-off grade for professional courses. And again, what is your cut-off grade for professional course, for a professional course? What is your cut-off grade for edu courses?
83, sir.
83, okay? So you should be able to at least earn a grade of 83 in this course so that you will not be asked to retake the subject. Because if you are to retake the subject, then that would mean that you have to earn at least 85% of 85% in your final grade. Okay, because if you are a retaker of this course and you wouldn't get at least 85, okay, in your final mark or in your final grade, then that would mean that you will not be allowed to continue the program, the teacher education program. So I hope that that retention policy would motivate you to keep going and to continue improving your performance in our class, not only in our class, but of course in all the courses that you are enrolled in this second semester. Okay? So, also, okay, we congratulate the one who got the highest grade, those who got line of 9, okay, those who got 90 and above as their grade for preliminary term. Okay? Is Princess part of our class?
Sir, yes po.
Okay, Princess got 90. How about Kim Joyce? Is she part of our class?
Yes,
Kim
sir.
Joy Paigubay?
Yes, sir.
Uh, Kim Joy also got 91. Congratulations. And we also have, aside from Kim Joy and Kim Joyce and Princess, we also have, yeah, I think they're the only two. Okay? They are the only two who, how about Angela Tangan? Is she part of our class?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Tangan got 92. Erica is part of our class, right? Is Erica around? Erica got 90. Okay, so those are just the students who got 90 and up as their grade for um, yeah, Erica is being admitted. Congratulations for those who got a grade of 90 and up for preliminary term. We have Princess. We also have Kim Joyce. We also have Erica. And the other one is sining sa kanina. Who's the other one? Yeah. Okay. So may we welcome questions from RJ. Nakapagaw ka ba? Second one. Wait, sorry. Yeah, Archie. Okay. Sige. Archie, anything, Archie? Yeah. Okay, let me also ask everyone if you already have started doing the weekly tasks for this week. The task for this week, that is to write questions.
Not yet, sir.
Not yet. Okay, so allow me to explain the task then before we proceed to the continuation of our discussion.
Sir, excuse me po.
Yes, Vernel?
Sir, hindi po daw maka-attend si PJ kasi po katatapos ng relief off nila sa Raubo Gate po. Pauwi pa lang po siya.
That is noted. Okay, so he will not attend today's conference, Vernel.
Opo, sir.
Okay, sige. Okay then. Who's choppy-choppy, sir, parang robot. Okay, sige. Okay, so allow me to explain to you your activity for this week. Okay, so I'll be asking you to complete the task until Wednesday this coming week. Okay, for this coming week, because after that, okay, I'll be presenting to you also tomorrow your another task, which is to create an analytic rubric. We hope that we could be able to discuss, okay, writing or preparing an analytic rubric in today's discussion, and of course, tomorrow's continuation of our discussion, so that by next week we can already proceed doing the next task. So allow me to explain to you your tasks for this week, and that is writing sample questions along Bloom's cognitive complexity. So you will again be working with a pair mate, and your pair mate has to be someone who is with your pair mate has to be your co-major. Okay, because as a pair, you are to select a certain unit of study in your field of specialization. Then after which you have to provide 5 examples of questions for each level of cognitive complexity. This worksheet particularly deals with the cognitive domain or the cognitive learning domain. Hence, the different levels under cognitive complexity, okay, have been enumerated under column 1. We have remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, creating, and evaluating. And a description on the second column, okay, a description for each level, okay, is also provided in the second column. So you have to study the description so that you could be able to write a sample question targeting each of these levels. Okay, and questions should revolve around the unit of study you have selected. Okay, for example, I am a social studies teacher, and the unit of study that I will be teaching would all be about the pre-colonial Philippines. Okay, that's a unit of study in Philippine history, pre-colonial Philippines. So under knowledge, because knowledge is or remembering is about recognizing, recalling information, including dates, events, persons, places, terms, and others. So I might ask them, what do we mean what describes a pre-colonial era? Okay, what describes a pre-colonial era is a knowledge level. Then comprehension, example of comprehension for that unit of study, a comprehension question for that unit of study. I might ask my students. Okay, I might ask my students to create a timeline summarizing, okay, the important events in pre-colonial Philippines. Because comprehension is about summarizing, it's about explaining, and other forms of explicating things using their own words. That's comprehension. Then application, it's about applying general rules or methods or principles to a new situation. So I might ask them, for example, that what particular, how will you be able to, how will you, how will you, how will you, how will you, how will you be able to promote, okay, promote our pre-colonial culture to the contemporary or to the present times? How will you promote our pre-colonial culture to the present times? That is application. Then analysis, I might be asking them to examine, okay, to examine a certain political issue in the contemporary Philippines, and they have to identify similar political issue from the past, particularly during the pre-colonial era or pre-colonial Philippines, and how would that political issue of the past explain, okay, explain the current or the contemporary political issue. That's analyzing. Synthesizing is about creating, okay, combining ideas to form a new whole. For example, after doing the analysis task, which I made mention a while back, I might ask them to provide a proposal, okay, to create a proposal on how to address a certain political issue using a pre-colonial and contemporary perspectives. Then, of course, evaluating is look at the reason argument. So maybe I'll ask them to I'll ask them to evaluate others' proposal, okay, others' proposal as has been created in under synthesis activity. So they are going to evaluate others' proposal so that they could be able to help such proposal to be improved or to be even further. Okay, so that is what you are to do. When I say a question, I just do not mean about a statement that ends with a question mark. You may also provide an activity here, okay, an activity here, or an activity or a simple question for each level of cognitive complexity. Please take note that 5 examples each level, okay, 5 examples for each level has to be drafted or has to be created. Okay, so any question about the task? Please turn on your camera. I'm not sharing any screen. So our policy is every time that I will stop sharing the screen, your camera has to be turned on. Okay, any question on the task? Any
Sir,
questions
none
on
po.
the task? None. Was it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. So, so would I expect then that um, you would get a good score, that you would earn a good score for the weekly task?
Sir, I'm not sure.
You're not sure. Please take note that if I would ask you to do a certain application task for our course, please take note that that will certainly be part of your quiz. Okay, there are 2 types of quizzes in our course. That is a quiz that is paper and pencil, and a quiz which is a performance-based assessment. For example, I would ask you to write learning outcomes. I would ask you to create analytic rubrics. These are examples of performance-based assessment tasks because you are asked to do the actual job. to do the actual thing that you're supposed to do as a pre-service teacher. That is writing learning outcomes, devising questions, that is preparing example analytic rubric. So this will be part, which is 20%, I think. Yeah, 20%, 20 to 25% of your grade. That's why it does not necessarily mean that though you keep participating or you got perfect score in all the recitation activities that we are doing, okay, that is merely a formative assessment. So formative assessment has a little, okay, little contribution to your grade actually, because it's just a 10% of your grade. So you really have to focus, okay, you really have to focus earning a good score in your performance-based assessment or even in your paper and pencil quizzes or tests. Okay? Kasi may nakita ko doon sa inyong doon sa class record when I computed your grade, I observed that there are those who are always present in our video conferences and they got perfect scores in all the sharing of learning takeaways, but they were not able to earn the supposed grade that they need to get, okay, as a mandate of the retention policy for teacher education. So ang ibig ko pong sabihin dito ay siguraduhin po ninyo na makakuha kayo ng magandang score sa mga performance-based assessment tasks at sa mga quizzes ninyo nang sa ganun ay masigurado ninyo na makakuha kayo ng magandang grado sa ating kurso. Okay? I hope that I made myself clear to all of you. Okay? There's a need for you to do the task which I just have discussed because I have seen that some of you were confused, okay, particularly in understanding the different levels under each cognitive domain. So I'll be posting later the link of the recorded video explaining the previous task, the answer to the previous task, so that you would know, okay, your mistakes, and so that you would learn from your mistakes. So that during the midterm examination, it would just be easier for you to answer those questions, such as questions which have been provided in your weekly tasks or exercises. Okay? So maybe now proceed to the continuation of our discussion, particularly on writing learning outcomes, how to write learning outcomes using a certain model. Now, while we are waiting for this, sorry, I forgot to mention about this. Yeah, in doing your tasks, I hope that you know how to make use of the Google Docs. Do you know how to make use of the Google Doc?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is what you are to do so that each of you, including your pair mate, will really work, will really do something, okay? Will really contribute towards the completion of your activity. You are going to download, okay, the worksheet provided in our LMS. Then after downloading the worksheet, you have to upload that in your Google Drive. Okay? You upload it in your Google Drive. Then in your Google Drive, okay, you have to share, okay, you have to share that document. You have to share that document to your pair mate. Okay? Then decide of a certain time, a certain duration of time that you have to be both online. Okay, then if both of you are already online, then you have to open that document in your Google Drive. Okay, then assign a font color for each of you so that you would know who is contributing, okay, the question or the answer or the response to the task. Okay, clear?
Clear, sir.
Okay, so I hope that the others would also do the same, so that it would not only be one student will be doing the task and the other one will be spared of learning something from the experience of completing the activity. Okay, So I hope you would do that. If you can't make use of the Google Docs, then you can have a phone conversation while you are doing the activity, or a video chat may also be done. Okay, so that both of you will contribute towards the completion of the activity. Okay, so maybe I'll proceed to, yes?
Sir, kaka-enter ko lang po kasi mahina yung net ko kanina. Naghanap ako ng signal.
Oo.
Ano po yung activity dun, sir? Yung isa po, yung may nakalagay na yung knowledge, yung remembering, ganun
Yeah.
po, sir?
That's right, Lori.
Yes, sir. Okay po. Thank you po.
Okay, sige. Okay. So maybe we just have to we have to proceed first to our discussion as regards aligning, sorry, ito muna. Writing student learning outcomes. Okay. So we're done with the Krathwohl and Bloom's affective taxonomy, no? You had activity on this. Now we proceed to selecting appropriate assessment methods. Please take note that even if you're done writing your learning outcomes, it would always be a requirement for teachers to consider choosing or thinking of appropriate assessment tasks, okay, to help learners achieve the intended learning outcome. Okay, so what activities will you ask your learners do so that they could be able to meet the expected learning outcomes or the expectations as regards the completion of the lesson are what we mean by assessment methods. And take note that there are a variety of methods, qualitative and quantitative assessment methods, direct and indirect methods that teachers may use to ensure that the intended learning outcomes are realized or are met by their students. So the following are examples of direct and indirect assessment methods. Okay, when we say direct assessment, we are referring to tasks. We are referring to learning activities or learning tasks that students will demonstrate or exemplify what they have learned from the discussion or what they have learned from the teaching and learning experience. So if you would ask students to demonstrate, to apply, okay, something that they have learned, then that's what we mean by direct assessment. And examples of direct assessment include simulations. When we say simulations, for example, you will ask learners to develop an electronic simulation, or how the blood flows, for example, in the veins or capillaries or even in the arteries. Okay, papagawa mo sila ng animation on that. That's an example of a simulation or simulating a certain process or a certain learning. Then we also have anecdotal records. We discussed this as part of the non-test, no? Behavioral observations or anecdotal records, performance appraisal. When we say performance appraisal, to check how they are performing in class. Locally developed exams. We're referring to quizzes. We're referring to major exams here. Okay, external examiner. Okay, for example, yung NCAI, that's an example of an external examiner. Then portfolios, oral exams, and standardized exams. When we say standardized exams, these are exams that are true to all. Okay, for example, ang ating departmental exam, for example, if you are enrolled in Philippine history or readings in Philippine history, and other courses also are enrolled in the same subject, you only have one type of exam, and that is what we mean by standardized exam, an exam that is true to all. The next is we have indirect assessment. When we say indirect assessment, it merely describes student learning. So anything that describes student learning, merely a description of student learning, then these are classified under indirect assessment. For example, prior to your graduation in the university, you will be asked to participate in exit interviews. Okay, and when the interviewer would ask you of the things that you have learned, okay, from your 4 year of stay in the university, then the things that you are saying, the things that you are saying, describing the way you are the things that you have learned in the university is an example of indirect assessment. Archival records, focus groups, written surveys and questionnaires, feedback from alumni as regards the education that we have in the university, parents' feedback as regards our services and as regards learning of their child in the university, employer survey, for example, why do they hire Louisians, for example, the feedback, okay, the answer to that question when we ask employers why they are hiring Louisians are examples of descriptions about learning in the university, hence an example of indirect assessment. And of course, curriculum feedback. How about the curriculum? How do teachers teach? A description of how teachers teach in the university is an example of indirect assessment. Okay? So please take note that grades alone do not provide adequate feedback or sufficient feedback to students' performance. However, if grading is tied to rubrics, it can be a useful tool to identify strengths and weaknesses. So it's very important that when we do non-test for our students, it's really very important that we have to make use of analytic rubric, because the analytic rubric will serve as our tool, okay, to quantify or to qualify our students' academic performance or learning performance. And aside from that, it's through the use of the rubric that we can be able to identify students' strengths and weaknesses. And because they could be able to identify their strengths also, then they would bank on that. They would keep doing that because that's strength. And when they would realize their weakness through the rubric that we use to assess or to quantify their work, then they would also do something to improve or to even check their weaknesses. That's how important rubrics are. And later on at the end of this presentation, we will be discussing about the different types of rubrics. And as part of your performance-based assessment, you would be asked to do or to create a sample analytic rubric, the most difficult type of rubric from among the list of different rubrics. Now,
Sir, tanong pa
yes,
ako.
please. Yes, anyone? Anything?
Sir, may quiz po ba mamaya?
Ano?
Sir, may quiz po.
Wala po. Bakit po?
Sir, nakalagay po kasi dun sa LMS may quiz po ngayon.
Nakalagay saan?
Sa LMS po.
Sure kayo? Check ko. I'm checking it now. Please on... today, wala. Ipopospone natin ito. Sorry, I'll just have to edit the date.
Thank you, sir.
We'll do that on the 20th. Sorry, thank you for reminding me. Okay, sige. Okay, now, aside from identifying or aligning our assessment methods to the learning outcomes, then we also have to state, in writing our learning outcome, we also have to state desirable performance criteria. What do you mean by desirable performance criteria? We're referring to the specific or measurable, observable terms or conditions that students need to observe when they do the learning task towards the attainment of the learning outcome. Okay? So later on, we will be discussing about performance criteria in our discussion as regards a model that we need to follow when we are to write our student learning outcomes. Now look at this. Is this learning outcome measurable? The students will be able to communicate effectively as demonstrated by obtaining at least a C grade in the course.
Sir.
Is this a measurable learning outcome?
Sir.
Yes. Who would like to recite?
Sir, try ko po.
Who's that, please?
Angela, sir.
Angela Tangan, tama?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Angela, please.
Sir, I think that is not a measurable learning outcome
Why?
because although obtaining is there, which signifies the measurement process, the C the C grade is not clearly defined and it merely obtaining is questionable, sir.
Yeah, that's perfectly said, Angela. Though, though a specific, okay, though a specific grade has been mentioned, okay, has been mentioned as a performance criteria, the C grade, okay, the C grade is not well explained. Right, that's right. So this is not a measurable learning outcome. This is what we mean by a measurable learning outcome. Measurable learning outcome. Students will be able to communicate effectively as exhibited by scoring at least 8 out of 10 for all the components within the grading criteria on the final writing assessment. So this is an example of a measurable learning outcome. So meaning to say, if students will exhibit a score of at least 8 out of 10 for all the components within the grading criteria, then that would mean that you have to make use of a rubric or a grading rubric to check, okay, to check students' final writing assignment. And this is an example of a grading criteria. So there are 10 descriptors, there are 10 criteria that students have to consider when they are to write their final writing assignment. And it says here that students, it's not just a single student, but all students should be able to exhibit by scoring at least 8 out of 10 for all components within the grading criteria. So I mean to say, in all the grading criteria here, at least students will get 8 out of 10 in each of these criteria. Okay, so if you would see, okay, based on this assessment, based on this rubric, there are two components of communication which has to be improved by learners, which will serve as areas for improvement. They only got, in item 2, they only got 7.4, and even in item 5, they only got 7.3. So, mean to say, the learning outcome has not really been met because because the average score of students under two criteria, okay, are not met. Hindi na-meet yung 8 over 10. Okay? So this is an example of a measurable learning outcome. To easily understand, okay, for easier understanding on how to write measurable learning outcome, we have to understand how student learning outcomes are supposed to be written. You listen very well because your quiz will all be about SLOs, will all be about writing student learning outcomes. Now, there's what we call as the ABCD model of writing learning outcomes. ABCD or ABCD model of writing learning outcomes. A for audience, B for behavior, C for condition, and D for degree. Now, A, We mean audience. It describes the intended learner of the instruction. It is identified only in the first level of outcome because of redundancy. What do we mean by this? When we write out a learning outcome, for example, we always say students should be able to, or learners will be able to, and who are the audience that we are referring this statement? We have who are the audience? The learners or the students. So commonly, the second statement there, it's identified only the first level of outcome because of redundancy. Before we write our learning outcomes, we already have mentioned, because no need for us to keep repeating who our audience are. Okay, that's why we have to mention it the first level of the learning outcome already. Okay, our learners are always our audience when we write our learning outcomes. The number 2 is letter B, behavior. It describes learner capability. It refers to the demonstration of knowledge or skills in any of the domains of learning. Dito papasok yung ating mga action verbs. Dito papasok yung ating mga action words. Okay? The concrete things that we will ask our students do. Okay, for example, students will be able to, students, the audience, students will be able to explain amalgamation or explain cultural diffusion. Explain is the behavior. Okay, what will they demonstrate? They are to demonstrate, the audience will demonstrate, will demonstrate how to, will demonstrate their knowledge as regards cultural diffusion through explaining or through explicating the said concept. That is behavior. Again, dito pumapasok yung domains of learning under behavior. Letter C is condition. It pertains to equipment and tools that may or may not be utilized in the completion of the behavior. Environmental conditions may also be included. For example, usually the condition is also mentioned in the first level or in the first level of outcome. For example, at the end of this unit, at the end of this course, at the end of this unit, at the end of this course are examples of condition. That after discussing this lesson, you should be able to do this. You should be able to demonstrate this. You should be able to meet this. That is what we mean by condition. And the last one is letter D, degree. Dito papasok yung performance criteria. It describes the minimum criteria for acceptable student performance. Okay, what do we mean by an acceptable student performance? What is acceptable as defined by the teacher? We have to include that in the learning outcome. Okay, that's what we mean by performance criteria or degree. So that's ABCD model, ABCD. Okay, we provide this example. The ABCD method of writing outcomes is an excellent way to structure instructional outcomes or learning outcomes. In this method, A is for audience, as we have said, B is for behavior, C for conditions, and D for degree of mastery needed. Example. Given a sentence written in the past or present tense, the student will be able to rewrite the sentence in future tense with no errors in tense or tense contradiction. The one in blue is an example of a condition. The one in green is the audience. The one in red is the behavior. And the one in violet are the degree of mastery needed or performance criteria. Okay? Okay, sige. We stop sharing. We proceed to our conversation. So for you to be given a chance to ask questions or to provide an example of a learning outcome using the ABCD model. Okay, please turn on your camera. An example of an example of learning outcome. You turn on your camera, please. Okay, sige. Pa-reciting mo rin yung kasama mo, EJ. Baka nais niya mag-recite.
Sir,
Okay.
magbibigay po ng example gamit yung ABCD, sir?
Yes, gamit yung ABCD. Sige, ako muna. Mag-example ako. Okay. I'll make use of the chat, no? Para may example ako. Using that's clear. Example of a learning outcome. Sige, mag-isip din ka ng example. Habang nag-iisip ako ng example, then we will share later, okay? Using the ABCD model. You turn on your camera, please. I want to see your faces. Okay, I already have an example here. Okay, I put it in the chat box. Okay, this is an example. Using an online news article, the learners will identify at least 5 examples of compound sentences. Okay, we try to study this one. Using an online news article, the learners will identify at least 5 examples of compound sentences. We try to analyze the example using the ABCD model. What is the audience?
Learners.
Learners, sir.
Okay, very good. The next one, we have the behavior.
Identify.
Will
Identify.
Identify compound sentences.
Compound
Good.
sentences.
What is the condition?
Using an online news
Using an online.
Using an online news article is a condition. And what is the degree?
5
At
examples.
least
Five
five
examples.
at least 5 examples.
Klaro ba yung halimbawa? Klaro ba yung halimbawa ng ABCD model in writing learning outcome? Klaro ba? Okay, now this is the task. I would like you to cite, using the chat box, to cite or provide 3 examples of learning outcome using the ABCD model. Anyone who will provide a perfect 3 examples of learning outcomes using the ABCD model will be exempted from the quiz. That would mean that he or she will get a perfect score for the first quiz for midterms.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect automatic. Kapag ma-perfect niya yung 3 halimbawa ng learning outcomes using the ABCD model.
Sir, 3 examples po.
Yeah, 3 examples. You type it, okay? One typing lang tayo ha, hindi pwede na pa isa-isa. Okay? So you make use of the chat box, you type all the 3 learning outcomes before you before you send it in the chat box. Okay? Disqualified yung mga i-disqualify ko yung pa isa-isa na nagbibigay ng example. It has to be 3 right away. Okay? Cindy, ang sabi ko minsan ng
Sir, not following instructions, sir.
Sir,
Yung tatlo
na-enter ko.
minsanan.
Sir, sorry, napindot ko yung enter.
Sir.
Sige, ulitin ka minsanan lang. Huwag gayahin si Cindy. Cindy, ulitin mo.
Sir, napindot yung enter kasi sa...
The others, please turn on your camera. Just turn on your camera while doing the task. I'm not sharing any screen anyway. Just a reminder, make sure that there's only one action verb in a learning outcome, okay? Just one action verb in a learning outcome. We made mention of that last meeting, except for the term compare and contrast. Okay, but for the other verbs, there should only be one action verb in each learning outcome. And of course, as I have said last meeting, avoid the use of some verbs like understand, value, appreciate, be aware of, and others. I think we made mention of that last meeting.
Sir, napindot ulit!
Ay, nako. Cindy.
Sir, pag nag-space yung
Diretso mo na kasi, Cindy. Ulitin mo ulit. I-copy mo na lang yung previous na sinend mo. Basta ang qualify ko lang yung tatlo na sunod-sunod. Okay?
Sir, pwede po ba magkakaibang topic?
Pwede naman. Yeah. That's no problem. That's not a problem. You may make use of different topics. Please take note that if in case that you will not perfect the activity, it would just be okay because automatically you will be given a perfect score for the participation. Okay, only that those who will be able to get a perfect 3 sa examples of learning outcomes using the ABCD model will be exempted from the quiz. EJ.
Sinabi ko na sensor. Sir, sorry na tent.
Ayan, meron na kay Ton. Okay, sige.
Sir,
Yes, Ton.
sir, yung ano pala kanina hindi ko narinig yun sa direct and indirect, sir.
Mhm. Direct assessment is when the student will concretely show how
Demonstrate.
they have understood the lesson. Okay, so any activity that you would ask them to demonstrate their understanding of the content or of the lesson, then that's what we mean by direct assessment. Okay,
Yes, sir.
for example, the one that you're doing now, I am asking you to write an example of a learning outcome using the ABCD model is an example of a direct assessment because you are actually demonstrating your learning. When I ask you, for example, I'll ask you, what did you learn from this course? What did you learn from our topic today? And you merely describe what you have learned, then that is merely an example of indirect assessment. Okay?
Yes, sir. So, sir, it can be the direct is uh, quality and the indirect is quantity.
No, it doesn't necessarily mean like that.
Okay,
Uh,
sir.
our demarcation or our consideration when we identify something as indirect and direct is the actuality of the demonstration of learning. Okay, when we say actuality, okay, if the students are actually showing how learning is being done by them, if the students are showing, okay, are concretely showing, okay, what they have learned from the subject or what they have learned from the learning content, okay, there's a task that they need to do to show how they have learned, okay, and that's what we mean by direct assessment. If it's merely a description of what they have learned or merely a feedback about their learning, then that is an indirect assessment because the students are merely describing their learning but not really doing what they have learned. Okay? So yung pinagkaiba ng dalawa.
Thank you, sir.
Okay? Oy, Cindy, nakatatlo na. Okay, good. I'm really happy seeing you all think while doing the activity. Yeah, I really love looking at your eyes, looking at your mouth while you're doing the activity because you really, really you're showing me that you're thinking while doing the activity. It's good. Magbibigay lang tayo later ng 5. We will just discuss 5 examples as you cited. Then I'll separately check your work. Okay, I'll separately check your work and I'll announce later in the LMS who will be exempted from the quiz if in case there are. And I really do hope, there will be, I really do hope that some of you will be exempted from the quiz. At mukhang nagtatravel si Jamie. Okay na? Sige, last maybe have last 10 minutes because we still have to discuss things. Okay, sige. While we are waiting for the others, okay, to to pause their learning outcomes, may we just have to discuss an example from each an example from the outcomes you have provided. Okay, so we start first with that of Ton. Sabi ni Ton, using a video, the dancers will at least follow the basic steps in Zumba. Okay. Those who are done providing their answer to this, providing their learning outcomes, okay, may we help Ton, okay, in unveiling or in understanding the learning outcomes being provided by him. So number two, it says here, using a video, the dancers will at least follow the basic steps in Zumba. Tom, what do you mean by using a video here? Is Ton is still around? Wala na si Ton. Okay, ito, sige. Kasi wala si Ton Dimaya. Okay, ganito. Using a video, the dancers will at least follow the basic steps in Zumba. This is quite confusing. Okay, the example is confusing. First is, was there any mention of the audience in the second example of Ton?
None, sir.
None. Okay, wala siyang example ng wala siyang audience. Meron bang behavior? Meron bang behavior?
Meron, sir.
Meron. So, the behavior.
Using,
What is the behavior?
using a
Ano, Erika?
video.
Follow, sir.
Charot.
Follow the basic steps. Okay.
Follow.
The basic steps. Okay. How about the condition?
Using a video.
Ay, condition pala yun.
There's a use of a video. Then how about the degree? Is there any degree mentioned in the example learning outcome?
Yung at least follow, sir.
Will at least follow. But do you think this is measurable? Yeah, that's right. At least follow. The word at least is the criteria. Tama? But is the criteria measurable? Is the criteria at least measurable? Anyone who would like to answer my question? Certainly, it is not measurable, tama?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how should we improve that? I think there's really something wrong. I think there's you really have to train yourself a bit when it comes to writing a grammatically correct, okay, grammatically correct English sentences, no? Kasi, when writing learning outcomes, we have to be very clear of our modifiers. We really have to be very clear of how we are supposed to make use of our words and how we are supposed to connect each of these words together and others. Okay, now, using a video, the dancers will at least follow the basic steps in Zumba. We improve this, we will say, okay, how should we improve it? Using a video, the dancers will at least follow the basic steps in Zumba. Students, paano? Using a video. Parang there's something wrong with using a video. Or how should we improve it?
Try ko po.
Yes, please.
Sir, using a video, the students will follow at least 5 basic steps in Zumba.
Okay, sige, that's I think a good improvement of the statement. Using a video, the students will at least follow 5 basic steps. Five steps in Zumba. Okay, that's right. It was improved. Pero ang concern ko in using a video, I think it's confusing. Should we make use of using the term using, or should we make use of another term?
Through a video, sir.
Through a video.
Through video presentation.
Creative presentation, sir.
Presentation. Oh, see, we have different interpretations already. Okay. Pero ang ibig sabihin ni Ton dito ang ibig sabihin natin ni Ton dito is, meron papakita na dance video halimbawa. Ngayon, susundan nila yung dance video para may pakita yung 5 basic step in doing Zumba. Parang yun ang point ata niya. Pero yung mga samples nyo kanila sasabihin na magagawa sila ng video to follow 5 basic steps of Zumba. So that's another interpretation. That's why we really have to clarify. Okay, how is the video being used? Kasi kung gagamitin mo, kung maggagawa ka ng video mo doing a Zumba, the video is no longer the condition. But the video will already serve as the assessment methodology. Tama? Okay, but
Yes.
you are going to refer from the video to demonstrate or to follow or to show 5 basic Zumba steps. Then the video that we are referring here will serve as the condition. Okay, so how should we improve it? In the context that the video will be used as the condition and not as an assessment methodology. Referring from a dance video, okay? Referring from a dance video, so we make use of the video, we refer from that video. Referring from a dance video, students will demonstrate at least 5 basic steps. Okay? 5 basic steps in Zumba. So meaning to say, the basic steps that they will be demonstrating will be coming from the dance video they are asked to watch or they are asked to view. Okay, so that's how we improve it. Okay, kompleto na ba yung ABCD? Doon sa example natin, referring from the dance video, students will demonstrate 5 basic steps in Zumba. Do we have the audience? Yes or no?
Yes, yes, sir.
Do we have the condition?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Do we have the degree?
Yes, sir.
Do we have the behavior?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay? So that's an example of a complete learning outcome using the ABCD model. So that would mean that Ton Di Mayo will not be exempted from the quiz kasi mali yung example niyang isa. So anyway, we will check the other examples still. Okay, then you will later learn who will be exempted from the quiz. And I really love your examples. Okay, so I'll separately check all these examples and later I'll provide you the one I checked and later I'll announce who will be exempted from the quiz. Okay, so maybe, yeah, I think it's already time. I thought we will still be discussing. Yeah, tomorrow we will continue our discussion and particularly we will discuss about assessing learning outcomes. And in assessing learning outcomes, tomorrow we will also discuss the different rubrics. Okay, the different rubrics. So next week, there will be 2 tasks for you. Because after we discuss the rubrics tomorrow, I'll open already the task. Another task, but this time, your tasks for creating analytic rubric will be done by teams. Okay, by teams with 5 members. Okay, by teams with 5 members. There are how many English majors here in class?
14, sir.
Huh?
14 po.
14. So there will be 3 groups in English. Okay, one group will 13, 14.
14, sir.
14. Okay, sige. Allow me to assign the team leader for each team sa English majors. May I request the English majors to please raise your hand. You put up, yeah, okay, para makita ko. Okay. So these are the English majors. Okay, sige. So the following will be the team leaders or team captains of each team. The first team will be led by Jella. Jella, you will lead the first team. Okay, the second team will be led by Princess. Princess, you lead the second team. And the third team will be led by Jire. Jire, you will lead the third team. Okay?
Yes,
So,
sir.
bahala na kayo, Jella, Princess, and Jire, bahala na kayo na pumili ng inyong mga team members. Okay? Clear?
Yes po.
Okay, good. So please put down your hands now. And my request, English majors, please put it off. Okay? And my request, the PE majors. Okay, to raise your hand. Okay, including LM. Shekina, including you, Shekina. PE and LM. Shekina, including you, please raise your hand. Okay, good. Okay. Okay, sige. So sa PE, there are how many PE majors and ED? There are how many PE majors?
Sir, 10. 10?
10.
10 po, sir.
10. Okay, sige. So there are 10.
Okay lang, PE, sir.
Ha? Erica will lead the first team. Erica?
Sir.
Yeah, Erica, you will lead the first team. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay, then Erica,
Yes,
please
sir.
accommodate Shakina in your team.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Okay, sir.
Then the other team will be led by Archie. Archie?
Go, sir.
Okay, you lead the second team. Okay, so team leaders, I'll give you the decision to select your team members. Okay. Then tomorrow we will discuss about rubrics, about assessing learning outcomes. Then I'll also show you an example of an analytic rubric so that you could be able to create one for your team. Okay, so for the meantime, if you have time tonight, you focus already on doing the first task, that is writing questions along the different levels of cognitive complexity. Okay? Any question as regards the lesson? Naunawaan ninyo ang learning outcomes? O sige, titingin tayo ng another example before we end our class. Tignan natin yung example ni ni Jella. Yung first, sabi ni Jella,
Surpass.
Ha? Given a sentence written in active voice, the student will be able to rewrite the sentence in passive voice with correct spelling and sentence structure. Okay. Do you think this is a perfect learning outcome using the ABCD model? Given a sentence written in active voice, the student will be able to rewrite the sentence in a passive voice with correct spelling and sentence structure.
Tama, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, this is a perfect example of a learning outcome using the ABCD model. Okay? So given a sentence in an active voice is the condition, student is the audience, rewrite the sentence in passive voice is the behavior, but the criteria, it has to be correct in spelling, and it has to be correct when it comes to sentence structure. Okay, so this is a perfect example of a learning outcome using the ABCD model. Siyempre, hindi ko muna i-check yung number 2 and number 3 para ma-excite si Jella kung exempted siya sa quiz. Okay, hindi ko muna i-check. Okay? So that's it. So thank you for participating in our video conference today, and I hope that you have learned something out from our discussion. Those who got a failing grade, okay, for prelims, please feel free to message me so that we can talk it out and so that we can identify plans for you and advice for you to be able to academic advice for you to be able to help yourself improve your performance. Okay, so because there are those who failed for prelims. Okay, so I hope that you find time to message me, to PM me in Facebook, or even to see me in the office if you have time. If in case lang, if you have time to see me in the office, for us to plan together as regards your as regards the strategies that you need to do to improve your performance. Okay? So except if Vernell and EJ has something to ask because they're still raising their hands.
Sir, wala po sir napindot ko sir.
Sir, wala. Hindi na, ano.
Yes, Vernell.
Sir, wala po.
Wala. Okay, sige. Any more question?
None, sir.
None. Okay, sige. Kasi nakapagliwaliw sina Archie, sina
Ala!
So, punta
Sir,
sila
may ginawa lang sa school.
Nag-picture sila sa I Love USL.
Sir, saan ka pumunta kanina?
Ha?
Saan ka pumunta kanina, sir?
Ano?
Ba't ang gwapo-gwapo kanina?
Nagpa-pictorial.
Ay, ala. Iba na talaga pag supervisor.
Nagpa-pictorial ako, nakakahiya naman sa'yo, Archie.
Sir, iba na talaga pag supervisor, no?
Supervisor saan?
Ikaw.
Okay, anyway. Hindi. Okay, anyway. Those who failed for prelims, please find time, okay? Find time to message me or find time to visit me in the office for us to work together for you to improve your performance. Okay? So may we have then our closing prayer, and because I miss the voice of Princess leading us the prayer, may we request Princess to lead us the closing prayer.
Let's dispose ourselves in the presence of the Lord, in the name of the Father, of the Son, of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Lord, we thank you for this opportunity for having our class. Please continue to guide and bless us, and please forgive us in all the wrongdoings that we have done. This we ask in your most holy name. Amen. In the name of the Father, of the Son, of the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Thank you so much. And again, I really hope I really hope that most of you will get a good grade, okay, during the final term, okay, and meet the retention policy, okay, and meet the required grade for the professional course. Please help yourself. We help one another. Okay, so thank you and God bless you all.
Bye, sir.
Bye, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.